I don't think there was anybody there that had any ounce of human feeling that wasn't swept up in that white, black, brown, pink, or yellow. It was one of those moments that just invaded your body.
The promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
It was late summer 1963, and George Raveling was just a few years removed from an All-America basketball career at Villanova.
I went to Villanova 56 to 60. I graduated with a BS in economics. When I graduated from Villanova, I went to work for Sunoco.
And one night over a meal in Claymont, Delaware, a most remarkable turn of events changed his life forever.
Warren Wilson was my best friend, and we did a lot of things together.
The civil rights movement dominated the discussion over the Wilsons' dinner table that night.
The news was dominated by this forthcoming march on Washington, and it was going to be the largest gathering of black people in one spot in the history of America.
Warren's father, Dr. Woodrow Wilson, urged the two to head down to D.C.
And he said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the money, you guys take the car, you've got to be there, this is a historic moment.
It was that twist of generosity that led the two men to the National Mall the night before the march.
So we get down there, we're walking around, we're running to a gentleman, he says to us, hey, are you guys coming tomorrow? And we said, oh yeah, absolutely. And he said, well, would you be interested in volunteering? And so we said, volunteering for what? And so he said, well, we're going to have 3 times as many people as the media is saying we're going to have, and we need lots more security.
And so the next morning, these 2 volunteer security guards show up early for the march.
He said, wow, you guys are really early. So he said, okay, you still want to volunteer? And we said, yes. He said, well, I'm going to assign you to the podium because we're going to need a lot of people up there.
That Wednesday, August 28, 1963, turned out to be the largest political rally for civil rights in American history.
King was perceived as being the keynote speaker, but that wasn't necessarily accurate. They kept King to last because they knew he would hold the crowd.
Upwards of 300,000 people descended on the Lincoln Memorial, highlighted by a speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and keeping a watchful eye was George Raveling. How close were you?
Oh, let's see. I would say I was to his left. I would say I was probably 6, 7 people down.
All the speeches that day were tightly regulated.
They told the speakers, if you exceed 5 minutes, we're gonna cut the mic and the sound on the mic and remove you from the podium. And so they were very adamant about this. And if you go back, the only person who exceeded 5 minutes was Martin Luther King.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I think there was something about Dr. King that just put a spell over you when you listen to him speak.
Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred.
So as he moves along, he gets to this one point in the speech, and I would suggest at this point he's an orator. And if
church is about to begin.
Yes, now church is about to begin.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
If you turn the sound up real loud at this juncture in the speech, you can hear Mahalia Jackson say, tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream, Martin.
I still have a dream.
Once we get to the I have a dream speech, you can see Dr. King's whole physical and vocal demeanor change. He is really into it. There's a cadence, there's a rhythm, there's a comfort that all come with it.
One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
And as you see the breakaway shots in the audience, you can see that he has the audience captured.
Black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
You would think standing here on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial within feet of Dr. King for one of the great speeches in American history would be a great story, and it is. But George Raveling's story doesn't end there. In fact, it's just beginning, and it's about to get a whole lot better.
The place goes wild. I walk over and I see him folding it and I say to him, Dr. King, could I have that copy?
You said it like that?
Yeah, that's all I said. And he handed it to me, and that was the end of it.
So George Raveling, the former Villanova Wildcat, actually possesses the original typed copy of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech.
What? I know we've been talking about this speech, so finally here it is.
Wow, so this is the piece of history.
Yes, yes. And as you go along, if we had the voice of the speech, we would be able to follow along. We'd notice that some sentences are short and some are elongated until we get over to the third and final page, and you'll see where King starts to deviate.
And the biggest change? The I Have a Dream part.
I am not unmindful.
One would be safe in suggesting that if he had not ad-libbed this piece into the speech, would the speech be positioned in historians' mind as one of the 2 or 3 most significant speeches in the history of America?
If they had stuck to the hard-nosed criteria of 5 minutes, I Have a Dream never exists.
Yes.
Because I have a dream.
So in a few simple twists of fate, Raveling now has 3 sheets of paper that symbolized a movement. And you may be surprised to learn that nowhere in this original text will you find the phrase, I have a dream.
Speech had no title. What happened is, afterwards, the leaders are invited to the White House. The first thing President Kennedy says is, Dr. King, I loved your I Have a Dream speech. It was unbelievably great. And so the media immediately captured this I Have a Dream.
The speech traveled with Raveling over the next 5 decades as he moved up the coaching ranks. At first, he kept it safely inside a book signed by President Harry Truman, and it remained largely forgotten until Raveling was hired as a head coach at Iowa, and a reporter asked a simple question.
He had what I guess I would call a throwaway question. He just said, hey, were you ever involved in the civil rights movement? And I said, well, I kind of. And he said, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, I was a security guard at the March on Washington. So anyway, once that became public, then it changed how I had to deal with the circumstances.
And although Raveling has been offered upwards of $3.5 million for the speech, it stays tightly locked away in a bank vault in California, largely unseen.
One thing that I think is we could all be thankful for is that the document still lives on. I'm just a lucky guy who happened to be there under these circumstances, and you always hear the cliche, being in the right place at the right time. Well, this was a great example of it.